Welcome back. You're watching HFO-TV, co-sponsored by AMF Capital, the Baljanik Law Firm, the Butler Exchange Group, and the construction firm J.R. Johnson.
Welcome back to HFO-TV. I'm Greg Frick, partner at HFO Investment Real Estate, and today we're lucky enough to have Clint Arp, president of J.R. Johnson, back with us, and you brought Jason Ramsey as well. Thank you for coming. We're going to have a little chat today about something that's been around for a long time, but it's kind of been, we're hearing more and more about it. It's kind of been in the news, and that's kind of some of the stuff going around asbestos and the working with it from a management standpoint, from an apartment standpoint. So we'll kind of open that up. We know asbestos laws have been around for a long time. Maybe we can give a little background on that. But what has kind of changed? We were just kind of talking off camera, where we are today versus where we were, say 10 years ago, and kind of give some background on that.
Well, I can just kind of put it into perspective.
Sure.
A couple of years ago, I think all contractors and everyone took it a little lightly. There's laws in place since the 1970s. And everyone kind of looked at, is that a popcorn ceiling, or should I test this and that? So everyone made their own general rules. But I don't know, a couple of years ago, they really started forcing the whole taking your stuff to the dump, and the dumps won't accept bad things and all that. And Jason kind of got involved as my smart guy here. That's why he's here today. He's my expert in that field.
Okay.
To find out what's really going on in this field. And we found out that they're starting to put some more strict restrictions out there. And as we're trying to educate people about that, we just started finding out that everyone's been non-compliant, and the DEQ just started to get a little more enforceful on it. And
because the rules there were some rules already in place back in the 70s, 80s. But now there's some things have changed, but there's also just better enforcement of what was in place, as well as maybe tighter enforcement, I guess would be one way to put it.
Correct. 2018, they passed the more permanent rules.
And those are rules regarding working with asbestos, the removal of asbestos?
Testing for asbestos, how you're going to handle asbestos, who's allowed to test and handle asbestos. Okay. You can't just go in and take your own tests anymore. You need to be a certified inspector. So things like that.
Back in the day, people used to just take their own sample and try to get it to a lab or call a contractor, and they've taken that all out of perspective too, because there are several different products that could be asbestos positive.
Right.
And so they wanted to have a trained person like Jason himself as a trained inspector for that, to kind of, I guess, clean it up. It's been dirty for a while. The laws have been around for a while, and there's been so much violation of it that we've actually met with the DEQ several times. We set up meetings, we try to be the expert in that field, and they give us that feedback why they're doing what they do. And a lot of us people just were not being compliant.
With the existing, gotcha.
With the existing law, so then they started getting more strict and finding ways to push buttons. And as everyone knows, there's kind of a knee-jerk reaction to go a little overboard. Right. And maybe, depending on how you look at it, they're going overboard or not, but the fact is, it's the law.
Right. And as for people that don't know, you guys are experienced in, you do a lot of, rehab work like that, remodeling. It's not really new construction, it's existing buildings, going in and doing things. It's where you have the exposure to lead paint, asbestos and things like that. So from an expert standpoint, I think you guys are really well qualified to kind of address this, as opposed to somebody that's just involved in new construction.
Yeah, and you mentioned some things where there's a lot of dates in there, and you already mentioned a couple of dates, and it gets to be very confusing. So with the lead, it's pre-78.
Right.
That has nothing to do with asbestos. People to apply it there. Residential regulations are not the same as commercial. We work primarily in commercial, so we've been putting the word about commercial, and commercial being over 5 units. Okay. So that's primarily anyone in the property management field, which is a strong field that we work in.
Right.
So
yeah. Residential, when you guys say residential commercial, you're saying residential being more single family homes. In our world, where commercial
fourplexes, duplexes.
When you start getting over 5
units,
you're in the commercial world.
Correct.
Gotcha. And there is no date to that, and that's one that's been scaring everyone. There is no date. It's the type of texture. They don't care. Anything suspicious by a trained inspector needs to be tested before you remove it.
And is there a date on the residential side?
2004 and below for the state of Oregon.
For the state of
Washington, it's still no date.
No date. So it goes back to more like the commercials. Okay,
correct.
Got it. Okay.
They say all structures.
So some people who may be not informed think, I've got a 20-unit building. It's residential. I'm not on the commercial side. I'm on the residential side. That's not the case. That's not the case here.
And that is the big problem. That a lot of people that are here in Oregon or in Washington. Oregon and Washington are very similar. Maybe Washington a little more strict because they don't have this clause for the residential, but somebody coming from a different state, they may have different, either more strict or different laws there, right, and come here with those ideas. So people have to also pay attention to what state you're living in and what regulations are there. And so we primarily try to educate on the Oregon, Washington, because that seems to be primarily
Okay.
our 50-mile radius workload.
That's kind of your sandbox.
Our sandbox,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Okay. And so in terms of testing, so they own a 50-unit building. It's, they want to do a reposition play. We're going to do new surfaces, and we're going to, maybe move some walls, maybe not, but we're looking, cabinets and all that. They come in and hire you guys to do the testing ahead of time to get an idea of what it is, and then that kind of roadmaps how they can move forward?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so in a situation like that, you do a full building survey or multiple building survey. And some of the emergency losses, we just test what we have to touch. So like if there's a water loss that affects a floor, we're just going to test the floor. We're not going to test every room if we're not going to touch it. So.
Gotcha.
And pricing's huge on that too, that we educate people on. If you have a pre-planned event like a turn,
right.
Well, then if you're going to pull some vinyl out, you should know that the time you get the notification that someone's not going to be there, you can test that, have the results, do the abatement if needed or not. You don't want to do this 3 days ahead of time because the permit process on a normal abatement could be 10 days for getting the permit.
Okay.
We can put an emergency one in, but it's going to cost double the cost. So educating people on how to make this what seems like a big headache, it really isn't if you're planned and you're ready for it and you're in the property management business, well, then you should learn to plan this in on the turn. Right. Get the tests done, keep the test results, and they'll be good forever. Keep them on site.
And do you have to do a test result for each unit, or is it building specific? If I've got a 50 unit again, and I've got 4 buildings that are 12 units each, do I have to, is it each unit I'm doing a test on, or is it, hey, if we do a test in this building, that covers those 8 units?
It's a room specific.
It's a room specific.
If it's a 2-bedroom unit, you're going to take multiple tests in every room of any suspect material. You can assume something's hot if you just want to have it torn out by an abatement crew.
But if I do unit 2 and next year I'm going to do
you can't
unit
assume
4,
that unit 4
I've got to do it the same. I got you. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so this is got it. So much more. Hey, I had an asbestos test done back 2 years ago on this other building, and okay, got it.
And you have to have those results there on site.
On site.
So you can't just say we did it and say we have it somewhere. It has to be there. Someone does a spot inspection, which...
And that's where they're cracking, that's where, kind of like you said, the law's been in place, but it really hasn't been enforced.
And they will show up. So they've showed up on our job sites. They've been on other job sites, and the notification process of that, after we actually had some meetings with the DEQ, they told us they get 20, 25 phone calls a day here, local. So, and a lot of it's coming from either the residents or a lot from people in the industry that feel that things aren't being done right, or they may be disgruntled. So that process is, you never know when it's going to happen.
Right.
They can just walk up and demand who took the test, are they a certified inspector, and where are the results?
And is there a minimum that they have to be doing to require the test, or is it, if we're going in to paint a turn, apartment vacates, we're just painting. So is that,
You got the technical terms of disturbing or renovation and demolition.
Yeah, if you're going to disturb asbestos, then it needs to be tested properly.
Got it.
If you're going to encapsulate it and it's not going to be disturbed to where it can become friable, is the term for dangerous asbestos when it becomes airborne. So if you're not going to make it friable, then you can go ahead and encapsulate or paint. But if you start disturbing it, then you need to test.
You need to test that. Okay.
So the hole in the wall that somebody punched, bad resident, or you start getting to that, if you have a way of patching it without disturbing, go ahead. But if you're going to disturb, you need the test.
Got it.
And that even goes on emergencies too and all that. So the old days of just cutting everything out because it's wet or you got sewage loss, there's a different process to that too.
Because now you've got to test ahead of time, because as you talked about, you can't just take stuff and go to the dump and dump it.
And we as a company, we have to also adhere to the, you have the OSHA laws. We also have the EPA where we're dumping the stuff, they can get involved. And you have the DEQ, you got Clean Air in Washington.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different agencies you have to pay attention to. So even if you do read something what the DEQ says, OSHA may have something different, but the one doesn't trump the other. You have to take all of it into account. Basically take the worst of all of them.
Got it. And make sure you're covering all your...
Yes. Yeah. The EPA could be mad and the OSHA could be mad and the DEQ all over something different. And they can all fine you for that or penalize.
So in terms of, as when we started this segment, is, we've heard more and more kind of owners, management companies talking about this in the last, I would say, 18 months, that, it's kind of changed a little bit in the way they're looking at things. You guys, I'm sure, seeing the same thing. Are you starting to, I don't want to say buying, because it's really not, but people starting to understand that this is the new, I want to say the new norm? The rules have been there, but now I'd say we're adhering to what is that coming now, or is it still an education? That's kind of why we brought you here, is to educate people.
It is an education thing. I think from the people I've talked to, I feel like the more information they have, the more they're starting to understand it and accept it.
Right.
There's a lot of fines that have been going around, and once people catch wind of what you could be fined, it's starting to sink in for some. It's not worth it.
Yeah, so we do feel, we've been pushing hard on the education, bringing people to our office, bringing in anyone who wants to come as a group and teach them just to educate them. And in the very beginning, there was a lot of jaw dropping and a lot of, oh, you've got to be kidding me, and a lot of the
Right.
WTFs and all that. People are now realizing that laws, whether we like them or not, they happen, and we have to find a way to now do our job with those in place.
You've got to navigate what's in place.
Exactly, and I think people are now starting to figure that out, and we're trying to assist them, like on the turns, how that's not going to hinder your turn. Yes, there's a little more cost associated, but if you're ready for it, it can be half the cost rather than having the knee-jerk reaction of, I didn't know about that, I need this fixed tomorrow.
Right.
So educating them and trying to help plan ahead with our clients is working. It's a slow process, but I think now the momentum is starting to really get going.
good, okay.
They don't want to get in trouble, and there's no reason why they should be.
Right. Right. Like you said, it's not going to slow you down that much if you can plan ahead. And
Correct.
There's ways to do it on like you call emergency situations.
Sure. And we can do we can even bid stuff on testing if we know it ahead of time. You have a big remodel or renovation. It's not a problem for us to go look at it, come up with how many samples we'll need, and come up with a number, keep costs down, make it competitive, rather than a knee-jerk reaction of, I got to do it.
And so when you do that testing, does that reporting then trickle down to all the subs and they're covered from that standpoint? Or is that kind of do you go to the general to say, hey, we want to do or remodel this building, you guys handle the testing, and then that's...
Well, we handle everything if needed. We
Right.
can handle all aspects, but other companies may be a test only.
Got it, okay.
And there's other companies that are just labs only. We're a full services, so we could send Jason or any of our other inspectors.
They can pull the test, they can run okay, got
and
it.
bring it to the lab,
We
bring
do
the
take
result
it to the
back.
lab. a third-party
Right, I'm
lab.
assuming you're not testing
we
at
don't-
Yeah, we
home.
do have a third-party
Yeah.
lab. Otherwise, we can make it hot or not all the time.
Right. And then you have the paperwork and it's there
And
on
we
site.
if there are subcontractors involved, we pass that information
Right.
down because they may be the ones disturbing the material. So if the D key shows up, they need to have that report as well.
And do they need, is there, for you guys as well, people working in that, is there now additional certification to be able to work on that, or is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
If
you can
it's
comment on
not
that.
asbestos,
I think that's positive.
but if it's positive, you have to be a certified abatement company with the state that you're working.
To get that product out?
Yes, all your guys have to be specially trained,
Got it,
proper
okay.
PPE.
Okay.
We have a specific license with the state of Oregon and Washington as a company. Yeah, they're pretty
So-
strict rules.
So for people that are doing this thing,
It's
they better
very
make sure
regulated.
that they're, people that are on site have that training, know what they're doing, or, like you said, OSHA or whoever could come in and, say, hey, okay.
Yeah, it's a very strict process. For us to even get licensed up and all that was a process getting there. And people are on a supervisory level. I don't know how many hours you said they have, a whole year's worth of work before they can even supervise a job. So
Really?
it's a pretty strict process.
So for what, you guys can bring to the market is the expertise on like kind of soup to nuts, run it all the way through the process, so and limit the surprises and things like that. I'm assuming keeping your clients up to date if things change or regulations change.
And that was one of the reasons why we got into it. We found that we were fronting that little road bump in there that was in the way, but slow the process down, having to wait for a subcontractor, testing and all that. So we've created our own inspectors. We've created our own asbestos abatement team.
Okay.
We've got our own SOPs. We have a whole new department that goes well with our mitigation team. Plus we can do the repair side. We've just now added roofing to our whole division too at J.R. Johnson. So we're really looking.
So yeah, pretty much soup to nuts from, once it's up, you can replace it, rebuild it, repair it, all that. So
with subcontractors or in-house,
Got
which
it.
just gives us that firepower and more control of the project.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Any other, what are you guys seeing, just in curiosity, and any other kind of regulations on the horizon or within the trade groups that you hear about, or is this
With
kind
the
of...
concrete.
Well, I know the silica laws that OSHA passed a couple of years ago have taken effect for the construction industry. So
Okay.
I see that getting more strict. I'm actually going to a conference in a couple months that's going to teach me a little bit
And there's a
more
lot of
on that.
violation there.
But there's definitely a lot of violations still out there for that.
Even cutting hardy plank siding, you see the big jobs, people
Yeah.
cutting to make a big dust cloud, that's illegal.
Anything that could contain silica,
You've got to contain it now.
you can't have a visible plume is how they state it now.
Okay.
But PPE, the equipment you use to cut it,
HEPA-vax.
HEPA vacuuming, so that's going to get.
So that'll be big on the new construction side then.
Yes.
Even on
very much.
remodel,
Yeah, on
we're
the
doing
remodel, yeah.
re-siding of buildings
Yeah.
and reclads. So we're doing those kind. When we have setups now where we can contain that, it goes into a HEPA vac. It's just a lot more stuff we need to do. But again, we have to be compliant.
Right.
We see a lot of others that are not, but let them get caught.
Well, I say the days of just hiring the guy in a pickup truck and a dog and a box to do your siding is probably not the way to go anymore with
Not
all
much,
the things.
unless it's building a fence or something.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and that's a good point you're bringing up, because a lot of people think, well, if I hire the contractor and they do it wrong, it's their fault. We found out through the fines and violations and talking to the DEQ, they're like, we're going to decide if we want to get the property management and the contractor and maybe an individual, depending on how that case looks. So if they,
So they
feel
can
like
trickle it
someone's-
up.
Sure. If it looks like somebody's being a little devious or this is their common pattern, they're going to set an example.
Got it.
And at the same side, they've actually been very nice about saying, we can see when somebody's trying and something goes wrong, we can also be flexible.
Okay.
So they're reasonable, believe it or not.
Right. Okay. But it's like you said, it's kind of intent, and then
Exactly.
yeah, burn me once, burn me twice. We'll see.
Especially if they ask for your past records for 3 years and it's all a mess, they're going to know.
Yes.
And they will.
So is from our our audience, apartment owners, investors, management companies, there seems now to be buy-in that this is the new norm of how we're going to do things moving forward. Okay, so that's slowly coming around.
Yes.
I'm feeling more positive about it, and I think now people are respecting it more. A lot of people are more resistant. And the first question would always be, well, how can we get around it? And it's like, some
not
things
the
you just
que-
can't get around. It's like, how can I work with this?
Kind of the cost of doing business. This
Yes.
is the new,
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming here to discuss this. I mean, it's a huge topic. I think for people that are, doing projects or looking, I think it's a new step that you need to add into it. It's not going to extend it out very long, but like you talked about, you got to, if you can plan ahead, get it done and know, because the days of just, hiring somebody who, again, has a pickup truck to do that, that's probably not the way to go, not with the amount of liability, and just, like you said, it's just kind of fraught with roadblocks all the way through. So, and I know you guys are very good at this. We've worked with J.R. Johnson for years on this. They don't do new construction, but everything after that, they cover all of that. So again, thanks for coming and explaining this, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you guys soon.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Our entire office specializes in multifamily real estate, making HFO the largest multifamily brokerage in the Pacific Northwest. Your success is our passion. Build your legacy with HFO. Call 503-241-5541 or visit our website at hfore.com for more information.